All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I have started the recording on this. We're going to post it up on the website later and we'll share it out there. So I might be letting a few other people in, but what I'd like to do is I would like to turn it over to the chair of the Connecting Women in Business group, to Kathy Bardens, to welcome everyone and kick us off.
Okay, great. Well, it is just so wonderful to see everyone's faces. I have missed all of you so very much. Um, as Lisa said, I'm the chair of this wonderful group. We're in our 13th year, heading toward our 14th year. So this has been a little bump in the road. When I said welcome to Connecting Women in Business in February, I didn't think that it would be 4 months before I'd say it again. It's been pretty scary and difficult spring for all of us, I think. I want to commend the Chamber for doing an amazing job. I mean, just absolutely an amazing job. Keeping everybody informed, keeping businesses going and promoted. And so thank you again for all of your hard work that you've done during this time. We felt the need to get together. It's time that we got together. I'm so happy that we decided to do it today. And I also want you to know that we're not going to take a July and August break. This year, we're actually going to program in July and August to make up for some of the meetings that we missed in the spring. So we hope that you'll remain available for these. They'll still be the fourth Tuesday. But just so that you are aware, we're going to stick with the virtual format through November. We will not be doing in-person meetings through November. Now, we have had some discussion in the committee that we may potentially look at a hybrid format as we move into the fall, but you'll need to stay tuned to that because we'll also need to stay cognizant of what the governor's restrictions will be in terms of indoor meeting size. But with all of that said, we've got some great speakers lined up. I think you're going to be pleased with everything that we've got scheduled for you. We want to thank our sponsors today. Mitchell Graphics is our program sponsor for today's program. We also want to thank, of course, our marquee sponsors, PNC Bank and great Grand Traverse Ophthalmology Clinic. And then, of course, our exclusive radio sponsor, Light 96.3. So thank you all. Join me in thanking our sponsors. Yay. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Julie Joles right now, just to say a few words about Mitchell Graphics.
Hi, everybody. It's good to see everyone. During this time, everyone has kind of had to figure out how to work differently, work better where we fit. It's been an identity challenge, I think, for all of us. We're all professionals. What we connect with is interacting with each other and being motivated and moving forward. And it was a tough time. Fortunately, Mitchell Graphics was able to continue work as an essential service provider. We did quite a bit with the two hospitals in terms of their appeal efforts to get donations for emergency relief. We did quite a bit with Great Lakes Energy as they communicated with their customers and Forefront Credit Union. But we lost a lot. We all did with tourism dollars and things that aren't happening in festivals. So we retooled. We're doing floor graphics right now, decals, instructional posters for social distancing, quite a bit of direct mail. We clearly have a captive audience. A lot of people are still stuck at home. So we learned to work differently, and we learned a lot about who we are as a company, who we are individually, and that was why this was an important one for me to sponsor, to work with Meagan and get her message out. I don't know if anyone follows her on Facebook, but she is a true breath of fresh air during this time that's just been rough on us all. So excited to hear about what she has to say. I think it has a lot to do with how we identify with ourselves professionally and personally. So happy to be on board for this one.
Thank you so much, Julie. And we really appreciate you as well as Mitchell Graphics for all that you've been doing as well. And so I'm sure most of you probably know Meagan Krzywosinski. Whether it's from her work at First Community Bank, or maybe it's her volunteer work with SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resources Management, or maybe it's from the board of directors for the Grain Train Natural Foods Co-op, or maybe it's for Camp Daggett and the Mother-Daughter Weekend and Kayak for a Cause, or maybe it's with the Chamber and Little Traverse Hospitality, the Little Traverse Way, or maybe it's the inspiring messages that Julie just brought up that she posts on Facebook every day, or that she's a Chamber community enthusiast winner. Oh my God, Meg. You've got it going out there, girl. So anyway, Meg has a passion, obviously, for inspiring humans to make a positive difference in their corner of the world. Embrace Your Brave is something that Meg actually cornered me about in Meyer, Thrifty Acres one day. And she has been really running with this theme in her life. And I am really excited to hear her speak today. So with that said, please welcome Meagan Krzywosinski.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy and Lisa and Nikki and Julie. And thank you for the introduction today. Thank you for asking me to be part of this wonderful group. It is true, I cornered Kathy a couple years ago now, actually, and said, I have this idea and I feel like I need to get it out and it's time to share it and I have no idea what to do. And she embraced me, and she embraced my crazy, messy, all the words coming out of my mouth, and I had no idea where I was going with this. I just knew that I needed to do something with it. And actually, Julie knows a little bit about what I'm doing too. And so thank you, ladies, for just embracing this journey with me and supporting me along the way. So today, I hope to share a bit about embracing your brave and where it all started and where I think we're headed and why right now is such an important time to embrace our brave. So without further ado, here we go. So embrace your brave. Click. This is the first time we run. I'm going to say click along the way and the slides will change. So just bear with us as we move through this technical part. So your dance belongs to you. And at an early age, I was a dancer. I love the ease of dance, the grace it provides. I love how my body feels energized when I'm dancing. And I love how I feel free on a dance floor. One day I started seeing my life like a dance. Dancing takes courage and strength and wisdom, and this journey we call life takes courage, strength, and wisdom. Dancing takes the ability to move your thoughts and your body together as one, just as life takes the ability to get out of your own way and embrace your whole self as one, all of it. The successes, the moments of growth, all of the messy in between. At this time in my life, when I started using dance as an analogy for living, I was really young, 17. I was hungry for purpose and I was extremely thirsty for knowledge. It seemed like nearly everything that crossed my path was giving me an opportunity to learn. I felt like the harder I worked at defining who I wanted to be, the more defined and graceful my dance felt on the inside. But here's the catch. I struggled with the fear of failing, like many of us probably do. I struggled with being okay with doing things differently from my peers and being okay with who I was. I essentially struggled with embracing my brave, although I had not put those three words together yet. I just was knowing that I needed to dance and knowing that I was struggling a little bit with that fear of failing. At some point, I remember thinking to myself, this is my life, and I have a choice to create the life I want to live. I can either sit on the sidelines and watch others dance, or I can get on that dance floor and I can create my dance, even if my dance looks a little bit different than somebody else. I suppose in reflection, I found the courage to be vulnerable and embrace my bravery, but I didn't even really know it. I was just experiencing it. It was a powerful time in my life. Again, I was young. I was ready to graduate. I had already had a taste of what the career world looked like. I was a co-op student, so I was working and going to school at the same time. I was being led by Jeanette Lewis, who, if you know her, she's an amazing human, and she did a lot for the Petoskey schools when I was there. It was like on that day, I started to own me and my choices and my future, even though I was super scared at failing. Dance became my motto for life. It became my solid foundation. You may be asking yourself, how in the world does dance and Embrace Your Brave come together? And that's a great question to ask. Dance is where my journey began. It was the foundation. Embrace Your Brave is about inspiring inner growth. And that's how dance and Embrace Your Brave come together. We all have a foundation. Where do we start? Where do we build upon? Mine so happened to be at a younger age, and in which I had taken this dance analogy and really started applying it to my life. Embracing Your Brave is about owning your imperfections. It's about being okay with being different. It's about being okay with challenging yourself and pushing yourself a little further. It's about having the courage to be vulnerable on the inside and on the outside. It's about having the strength to connect to your soul, right down to the core. And Embracing Your Brave is about developing your wisdom, being a constant learner in life. And sometimes that learning is done best when we're quiet. Sometimes the best learning happens when it's quiet and we can actually hear what's going on. This journey about embracing is needing to be exactly where you are and understanding exactly where you are in life is where you need to be. Embracing Your Brave is what happens for me when I put three little words together and started defining the hard work that I was doing to understand myself and understand and accept my imperfections. And now, after a good handful of years, and I'm still learning, but part of my learning journey is sharing with other people that are around me. And it's what really drives me. I want to share. And Embrace Your Brave is about not only inspiring my own inner growth, but inspiring inner growth amongst anyone that's ready to learn and who's ready to embark on this journey. So today I'd like to share what I call superpowers. And there are three key superpowers. The first one is courage. So courage matters. Your success is truly determined by you. I once had someone and a mentor who I really respected tell me, in order for you to be successful in life, Meagan, you need to attend a 4-year university. You will not be successful unless you attend a 4-year university. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, if I don't attend a 4-year university, I'm never going to be successful in life. And some of you may be thinking, why in the world would your mentor, somebody that you look up to, tell you that this is what you had to do in order to be successful? I was a little confused by that too. However, I embraced it and I listened. But I knew that attending a 4-year university was not in it for me. It's not what I wanted to do. It felt different. I knew all of my friends were doing this, but this is not the journey that I wanted to have. For me, attending a 4-year university felt awkward. And I held on to that for a long time thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be successful unless I attend a 4-year university. And I held on to those words for a long time, but somewhere along the way, thankfully, I remembered that this was my dance, and my dance might look a little different than somebody else's dance. And I started to embrace my brave, my journey, my dance steps, and I realized that I am the only person that gets to determine my success. And if my success is doing something different than somebody else, that's okay. If I take a few steps forward to go a few steps backwards, that's okay. And I did what felt right for me. So while all of the people around me were getting launched and going to big cities and big universities, I did what felt was right to me. And to me, that was courageous. And I am a proud graduate of North Central Michigan College. I have a wonderful education from our community college, and that's what felt right to me. So being courageous and doing what you need to do, what feels right on the inside, is so important. It takes a lot of courage to accept feedback from people, but it takes even more courage to own your own path to success, because your path to success does not look like somebody else's path to success. Next slide. You'll hear me quote Maya Angelou a few times in my presentation, and she is one of my superheroes. I never had the opportunity to meet her, but I love her, and I've spent a lot of time learning about her life. And she always said, develop enough courage so that you can stand up for yourself and then stand up for someone else. And in those words and her words, having enough courage so you can stand up for yourself means accepting the feedback that people provide you and the gifts and embracing them like they are gifts to you. That feedback is a gift, but having enough core strength to make your own decisions. And once you have that core strength, you can really stand up for other people. And actually, you can help them succeed at whatever their goals are, and not be afraid to do that. So brave is doing the right thing, even when doing the right thing is hard. And I love listening to students, for example, who are headed off and trying to make these giant decisions in their life, and they have their whole life ahead of them and they're not really sure what to do. And what I usually say to them is just pause. What do you want to do? Maybe staying local is for you. Maybe going to a technical school is for you. Maybe working is for you, and maybe going away to a big city is for you. But bravery comes from being able to listen to what you really want to do, and not just necessarily following what the path is for everyone else. Next slide. So another form of courage is not being silent and moving away from kind of that educational story that I just shared. I love this quote from Martin Luther King. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. Listen, things that matter are tough. And I will say that several times throughout my presentation today. things that matter need to be talked about. And if we're just quiet about those things, we're not doing anything. And so quiet and being silent is sometimes learning, but it's also sometimes just having a conversation of asking questions and listening to the information that's provided to you. So courage is asking questions and at the same time listening to the answers. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. And I would say about the things that matter most. Next slide. Superpower number 2 is strength. And I would say strength to love our imperfections. And this was really hard for me. I would title, I think Brene Brown, I read this in one of her books. I think she defines herself as a recovering perfectionist, and I will definitely add myself to her list. A recovering perfectionist from a very early age. Oh my goodness, from a very early age. So here's what I've learned. Perfection is not reality. And being imperfect is actually being quite perfect. Here's my message. Just start. Because the perfection will hold you up. Start whatever it is that you want to start today. Do whatever it is that fuels your soul. Love yourself and love the perfectly imperfect journey that you are on. We only get one shot at this. So stop trying to be perfect. In fact, and I'm going to share a funny story with you in a bit, but every time I try to massage my way into having something be perfect, something appears in front of me and I just have to say, okay, I give is not going to be perfect. And I almost laugh at myself now. And if we talked 15 years ago, I would say something different. I would say it was frustrating to me. And now I just say, okay, this is out of my control. I've done the very best that I can. I've planned as much as I can, but the plan is not going to be perfect. And I need to be okay with that. So please learn from me. And if you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I like things to be perfect and I like the perfect plan and I like everything to be detailed out, it's okay. You can have that plan, but don't expect it to be perfect. And when you have a bump in the road, you just have to say, okay, I'm going to learn from this. See, loving yourself and loving this journey is about embracing those imperfections along the way. Brave is really raw and brave is really messy. And the ability to love your imperfections is brave in motion. It's strength. It's what builds character. It's what keeps us on our toes. The most beautiful dance isn't perfect. And in fact, the most beautiful dances I have danced are those when I've messed up and I've taken a step to the left instead of taking it to the right. Maybe I've stepped on my partner's toes for a moment, but I've continued with grace and the dance is going to go on. Just because you stepped left when you were supposed to step right doesn't mean that the dance was any less. In fact, maybe it was just a little bit more beautiful because it had a little bit more character. Next slide. So love your imperfections. The bold, the messy, love it all. Love the fact that you are getting a solid B+ at life. Listen, strength to love your imperfections is truly about just starting. You don't need to be in shape to start working out. I promise your body only cares about the movement, not how cool your outfit is or what brand of shoes you're wearing. You don't need to take giant steps when you start something new. It's okay to not have a perfect plan. I call it my B+. I was sitting in a board meeting, this was probably 4 years ago, and we were grinding. And we just couldn't come up with exactly what needed to be said. And at some point, we had this conversation about not being perfect. And of course, for me, that was a trigger, right? I go, oh my gosh, not perfect. That's like the whole message that I'm trying to develop is this not perfect. And the reality is that we don't have to be perfect to start. In fact, being a B+ is exactly where we need to be in order to start. So you could say B+ and go would probably be fitting for most of us. We can strive to be an A, but we should just start at a B. You don't need to know all the yoga poses, and I hear people, I'm a big yogi, dancing and yoga are my things. And some people will say, weren't you scared to start yoga? Aren't those poses hard? What are all those words? What do they mean? Just start. In fact, if you've been wanting to go to yoga and you're nervous about the poses, I'll go with you. We can Zoom yoga together. Just start. Having the strength to love your imperfections is about believing in yourself and believing that you have the ability to grow. You can grow to be an A. I would say don't worry about being an A+, but you can grow to be an A, but you first have to start. And starting only takes one step, just like a dance. When you start, you just have to move your body in one direction or another. It doesn't have to look perfect. It doesn't have to be graceful. And I'll tell you, it feels awkward at first, right? Starting feels awkward, and that's okay. Because when we're feeling awkward, we're actually growing. And growth is strength. It feels so weird when you get on a dance floor for the first time. And some of you are probably thinking, no, Meagan, there is no way I would be getting on a dance floor. But I'm gonna challenge you to just try. And guess what? Your kitchen is the best dance floor around. Just turn on some music and take a few steps. That's brave, that's courage, that's strength, and your body will love you for it. And you don't have to look perfect while you're doing it. If we always wait for the perfect moment, the perfect day, the perfect whatever, we are only holding ourselves back from truly the greatness that lies ahead. I mean, have a plan, right? You'll never hear me say don't have a plan. Next slide. That's good, Lisa. I am a planner. I have been a planner my whole life. In fact, my mother used to say that I used to plan the shoes that I was going to wear. And when I was in the dance studio, I would line up all the little shoes, even as a little kid. So have a plan, like the organization. But don't let the planning consume your start. That's worth repeating. Do not let the planning consume your start. I love the saying, and I have no idea where I picked this up along the way, but I love the saying, failing to plan is planning to fail. I believe you have to have a plan. You should not go into the woods without a compass, right? That's not a good idea. So you should not start without some plan. You should know where you're headed, but do not allow yourself to not start because the plan isn't perfect. So have a map to help you navigate. but then start. Plus, is the whole plan really in our full control anyway? Let me answer that for you. No. Here's a funny story. And as I was sharing this presentation with my daughter, Piper, she laughed a couple times, and she said, as I was going through my notes, "Mom, are you overthinking your plan?" And let me tell you, our kids are number one for holding us accountable. And we giggled about it, and I said, "You're exactly right. I have a plan. My plan's here. But I'm going for it." So here, let me tell you a story. So Piper's dad and I, when we got married, we knew exactly what we were doing, right? Because every young married couple knows exactly what they're doing. We bought our house, we got married, and we were building our careers, and he was doing great and I was doing great, and we decided that we weren't going to have a family until XYZ, right? Because that's what you do when you're young, is you say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do this. And I said, I need to cleanse before I get pregnant, right? I want to make sure that my capsule, my body, is ready to have a baby. And he said, okay, whatever you need to do, Meagan. I said, okay, great. So on this day, I am going to start a cleansing program. I am going to work out for 90 days. I'm going to build my core, because that's what all the books say to do. I'm a huge reader, and I was then too. So I was reading, and all these books said you should build your core, you should work out, you should cleanse your body, you should get your capsule ready to grow a baby. So that's exactly what I did. I went to Dan and I said, Dan, on this day, I am going to start working out, and on this day, I'm going to start the cleanse, and that means we need to get pregnant at this day. He said, okay, whatever you'd like to do. I said, great. So there I was. I started on my journey of working out, and I was working out, and the day came where I started the cleanse, and I specifically remember standing in our kitchen. I couldn't start the cleanse. I tried. I couldn't do it. Every time I tried, my body would say no. So I called my mother, who's in medicine, and I said, Mom, I don't understand. Why is my body not allowing me to start drinking these shakes and taking these cleansing supplements? And she said, well, I don't know. Have you recalculated? I said, I think so. I've done everything. I've worked out. I'm preparing my capsule and eating all of the right foods. What is going on? And I'll tell you, Dan was in the corner going, oh my gosh, Meagan, seriously, do we have to go through all this? So after my frustration had grown, my mom said, as she was sitting across the counter from me, do you think there's any possibility that you're already pregnant? I said, no, absolutely not, because that's not part of the plan. She said, why don't you go take a test and call me tomorrow? Up to which I, was ranting and raving and thinking, that's not part of the plan. I'm sorry, but that's not the way it goes. I listened to my mother. I took a test at 5:05 a.m. It was positive. I went running up the stairs and I said, Dan, we're already pregnant, but that's not part of the plan. And he said, sometimes you can't control the plan, Meagan. Whoa. We were already pregnant. I was doing all of this work, preparing my body. I had wondered why I was working on my core so much and I wasn't seeing any results, because normally I had seen results, but whatever. Sometimes the plan, the perfect plan that we make, somebody else has a bigger plan. I was 3 months pregnant and I didn't even know it. So talk about a wake-up call to always planning. At that moment, I realized I can make all the plans in the world. I can look at my map. I can navigate to that North Star as much as I want to do it, but there are some things that are just not necessarily in our full control. So just start. Prepare yourself every single day by being strong. Whatever your strong looks like, your strong is going to look very different from my strong. Your compass may take you to the west and the east, and you may have to recalculate, and you might have to navigate a little out of your comfort zone. But you can do it. Don't stop because the plan isn't perfect. I am so happy that our journey ended the way it did. And I'll tell you furthermore that what made this all come together was when Piper was about 3 years old. We were lying in bed one night and she said, "You know, Mom, I picked you." I said, "Excuse me?" And she said, "Yeah, on that day I was flying through the sky and I looked down and I said, she's the mom for me." So stop controlling the plan because somebody else might have a bigger plan and it'll all work out okay. So spend time being strong enough to learn and be brave enough to grow, because learning is only half of this. You can read a lot of books, you can listen to a lot of webinars, but you have to be brave enough to grow with the knowledge that's coming your way. I saw this picture. I'd rather be excluded from who I include than be included for who I exclude. I saw this, and I'm sure many of you did too on Facebook. It's been going around. I have no idea who the author is, so I can't, I'll just say I saw it on Facebook and I thought it was so powerful because learning is truly only half of the equation. And including people in your journey along the way and their messages is so important for how we grow. Being brave is about growing. Being brave is about saying, I don't know all the answers, and this is really hard right now. It's about saying, I'm going to include you. And if this is tough, that's okay. We're going to do it together. So be brave enough to learn, but be brave enough to grow. Next slide. The third superpower is wisdom. Wisdom looks very different for us, and it comes in many different forms. Wisdom can come from the simplest conversation that you have with somebody, and it can come from the biggest novel that you read. It can come from a video that you watch. It can come from a simple TED Talk. It could come from a Goalcast video. Wisdom is just really embracing all of the knowledge that comes down your way. So wisdom also comes from sharing. And wisdom comes from being okay with sharing your story. And wisdom comes from being vulnerable to not only listening to your story, but watching how it can be impactful. When we share, everyone grows. And that's really an interesting message to hold on to. For several years, I would listen to everybody else's stories and I would think, oh my gosh, that's so inspiring. And I'm so glad I had the opportunity to connect with this person because their story has really shaped me, or maybe they have shared something in it, and out of their whole presentation or their whole story, I took one little nugget from that and remembered it 10 years later when maybe I was in a tough situation or I had a celebratory event. And so when you're sharing, you are not only are you growing, but you're also helping other people grow. And I don't mean sharing as like egotistical sharing and doing it from that direction. I mean, at the core, taking that courage and the strength and saying, here's what I've learned along the way, and I just want to share it with somebody else so that their journey can be enlightened or enhanced, or maybe some way what I'm saying or what I've experienced can help them through this life. So several years ago, I was involved in a servant leadership training, and I won't go on that tangent of servant leadership, but if you have not spent any time in the realm of researching servant leadership, it is absolutely beautiful, and I highly encourage you to go down the journey of servant leadership. So several years ago, I was involved in the servant leadership training, and the training was about 9 months in length, and it involved individual evaluations, and it also involved a 360-degree evaluation. And it was probably some of the toughest core work that I had done to that day. And honestly, it became that 360-degree evaluation became a launching pad for the growth that I've continued to do. But I was holding some stuff back that I didn't really want to embrace. And that 360-degree evaluation really kind of launched me. I mean, the servant leadership training was full exposure. It was dig down deep, pull back the onion layers, true self-learning. And I was hesitant. I was nervous. We were put in these little pod groups. We had like 15 people, and the 15 people we were all different. And we're all different. We all have a different story. And so we were pulled into these pod groups, and we are expected to not only talk about servant leadership, but be servant leaders and pull back all these layers and dive deeper into each other. And it was really, really tough work. But I was in, right? At first I was nervous, and then the more I started learning about how we were going to pull back the onion layers, I got really excited, because I'm kind of that nerd who loves like psychology and social and emotional intelligence, and I love all that stuff. So the more I started to learn about servant leadership, the more I was like, okay, yeah, I like this. I am all in. So during this time, some of the feedback I received personally brought me to tears, happy tears, while some of it was super tough to hear. Probably the toughest comment feedback that I received was something like this. And I was looking for my servant leadership folder when I was preparing for this, because I really wanted to share the exact feedback, but it went something like this. It seems like everything has been handed to her on a silver platter because she seems confident. Click through. I can tell you, not everything's been handed to me on a silver platter. And when I heard that comment, I thought, oh my gosh, I clearly have not been as transparent as I need to be in general. Click through. Because the silver platter doesn't exist. It's been a beautiful journey, but I've had some recalculating to do along the way. So when I heard that comment, or I saw that comment come through, and again, these are all anonymous, right? I just know somebody did it. There were like 26 people or something that evaluated me, and not out of the group, right? Not out of the 15 people. The 15 people that were in the group could or couldn't have evaluated me. I have no idea. But that comment could not have been further from the truth. And while the comments that were being, while the comments were being shared, what I realized was that sharing your story is probably one of the bravest and most necessary things to do in life. Because when people know who you are and people understand where you sit or why your thinking is the way you're thinking, it helps them understand who you are as a human. And understanding who people are as humans is critically important in this life. If we don't understand where people are coming from, by nature, we become judgmental. And that's not okay, because everybody has a unique journey. And so I would encourage you to be transparent. I mean, you don't have to say everything. You don't have to tell everybody stories about every single thing, but be transparent. Tell them what's going on. You know, Piper and I just had this conversation the other night. I have been, it's been a tough go in our house over the whole COVID situation. And the tough go has been is that I was really sick 2 years ago, like really, really sick 2 years ago. Like I saw my life coming before my face. And about 4 years before that, I had a really big scare with the C word. And so I take stuff pretty serious. And, you know, coming from parents that have been in medicine, I probably know more than I should about germs and viruses and all that kind of stuff. So being transparent is really important. So our conversation the other night was, hey, Mom, like people don't understand why you're so weird about the COVID stuff. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm so weird about the COVID stuff? Like, that's a weird statement. What are you talking about? And she's like, yeah, people don't understand why you're like, you know, so passionate about it. And I'm like, well, did you tell them what happened 2 years ago? And she's like, well, no, I'm not going to tell people your story. I'm like, well, tell them. Be transparent. So last night she comes home and she's like, yeah, so I told your story about 2 years ago. And I'm like, yeah, and what happened? And she's like, they said, wow, I understand why your mom takes this so serious. I'm like, thank you. Because sharing your story matters. So let me share another really personal story with you. And I'm being completely vulnerable because let me tell you, I've not shared this story with many people. But here it is. So I had a little scare with the C word, right? So I found a bump and I ignored it for 6 months. Until one day, like 2 people that knew said, you know what, I'm gonna call your mom if you don't go get that checked out. I'm like, I'm a 30-some-year-old woman and you're gonna call my mother on me? And they said, yeah, because you're not owning part of your story and what's going on in your life right now. And I thought, all right, great. So me and my whole embrace your brave thing is coming back to haunt me right now because now somebody's holding me accountable, which is really good. So I said, fine, I'll call the doctor. And so I called the doctor and they said, you need to come in. And I said, okay. So I begrudgingly went in, nervous as all get out. And they said, we need to look at this further. Like the worst thing. And for those of you that have been there are like, oh my gosh, yeah, you get this pit in your stomach, right? And you're like, okay, everything's going to be okay. I'm totally embracing this. Life is going to go on. Everything's going to be okay. This is just a bump in the road. We're just going to recalculate, but we're going to follow the map because this is not part of the plan. This is not part of the plan. So then I had to tell my mom. So I told her. And she said, thank you, we'll get through this together. It's a little bump in the road. I said, okay, yep. I am nervous as crazy, right? I said, please don't tell anybody. You know, I just want to go through this journey. We're gonna do it. We're gonna get through it. Whatever the results are gonna be, we're just gonna embrace it and we're gonna go forward. Okay, she says. That didn't happen. She told her best friend. Her best friend told her daughter. Probably the best thing that could have ever happened. I got my results. They were negative. Her best friend's daughter also had a lump. Because I went and got mine checked, she decided after 6 months of waiting and not telling anyone, she should get her lump checked. Unfortunately, her result was positive, aggressively positive. She was stopped in her tracks. Fast forward 9 months later, together we were side by side walking by the Chicago River, downtown Chicago. It was October, and if you know what happens in Chicago in October, the timing couldn't have been more perfect. And by the way, this is pretty much how things in my life work out, right? You put it out to the universe and things just happen if you're aware, and if you have the courage to put things out, and if you're strong enough to watch what's happening around you. She looked at me, she said, "Thank you." I said, "What are you talking about?" We had just enjoyed a beautiful dinner together in this really cool wine cellar in Chicago. I didn't even know there was an underground like community in Chicago to eat. So we had this beautiful dinner, and she was actually walking me back to my hotel, and she said, "Thank you." And I have no idea what you're talking about. And she said, "You saved my life. I'd be dead today." I said, "Excuse me?" She said, "I know you told your mom not to tell anybody. And she did anyway, and it saved my life. So thank you for being brave enough to get your stuff checked. And thank you for being okay knowing that someone shared your story." Whoa. Sometimes you have to be strong and you don't even know you have to be strong. Sometimes you have to have the courage to just do it, to just start, to just do whatever it is that you need to do. There is only one dance. Few steps forward, few steps back. Just do it. So going back to the silver platter hasn't always been handed, the stuff, the life, it hasn't always been handed on a silver platter. And so what I realized going through that servant leader training is that being transparent and sharing your story is probably the number one thing that we don't do that we need to do. So ask yourself, how transparent are you being? How transparent are you being with your kids, with your significant other, with your best friend? How transparent are you at being in life, at just saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm not perfect." How transparent are you allowing? How much transparency are you allowing in your life? How much are you allowing other people to share their story with you so that you can grow? And when people are sharing their story, are you listening? I mean, are you really listening to what they're saying? Are you really learning to gain that wisdom from whatever they're sharing with you? Our stories are all unique. Our stories share the foundation of who we are as humans. Our stories share the perfectly imperfect journey we have traveled to get exactly where we are today and to where we're going to go tomorrow. So I had the opportunity to share a small nugget of my story during this classwork. In fact, we were challenged to actually write a letter about us to our group, which was hard, right? Pulling back the onion layers, telling our story. And when it came time for round 2 of that 360-degree feedback, one comment, and I have to believe, and I have no idea, and I'll never know, and that's okay. I have to believe that same person that wrote, "She always has stuff handed to her on a silver platter," may have wrote this comment, "I had no idea, and now I understand." Her confidence comes from her story and her strength. She had to be strong, because being strong was all she knew what to do. And you have to be strong. Be strong. Put your strength out there. search down to your core. Who is it that you really are? Are you embracing your own story? Are you embracing all of the positives that have happened in your life? Are you embracing how you've navigated? And then are you embracing the times that you've had to recalculate? Are you okay with your story? Do you love your story so that you can love yourself? I flew a lot when I was little. My dad lives in North Carolina. I flew back and forth all the time, and I always was puzzled of why they said you should put your own oxygen mask on first when you're in an airplane. I was like, well, shouldn't I help the guy that's sitting next to me? He's like 50 years older than I am. I was like 10 when I was traveling. And then I got it. If you don't have your own mask on, you can't do anything for anyone else. Just like a thumbprint, none of us are the same. We can be similar. Our journeys could be parallel, but your journey is your journey. And are you embracing your journey? Are you doing what you need to do for yourself? Are you supporting yourself, and are you loving your journey? Share your story. It matters. In fact, it may matter more than you really think it matters. We're kind of like an iceberg. I love this picture that's on our screen, right? You've heard this analogy a lot, but it really sticks and it's worth sharing again. So on the surface, we can, look like beautiful and bold. And if you've ever really taken some time to really look at an iceberg, it's so cool, right? I mean, the ice, the formations, and that nature does that. It's amazing. And sometimes we forget that the beauty on top is because there's this weight in the bottom, kind of like a sailboat, right? The sailboat's never going to tip over because there's the weight on the bottom that kind of keeps it. So it could go all the way to the side and look like you're going to fall into the water, but then there's this beautiful little weight that's strong and courageous and knows what to do. And so that's kind of like an iceberg. There's beauty on top, but there's all this stuff underneath, positive stuff and challenging stuff. And the bottom is what makes up our story. So you're like this beautiful capsule on the top, just like an iceberg. And then you have all this stuff inside of you that makes up who you are. And if you didn't have all that stuff inside of you, you would have no beautiful little capsule on the top, just like an iceberg. Go ahead and click through. So humans are incredibly complex, right? I mean, I spend, you spend, we all spend this time like trying to understand humans, and we are just beautiful, complex creatures. And your story is unique and your story is beautiful. And I want you to remember that your story is enough, because every single one of us is beautiful in our own way. And even if you're like, Meagan, my story is messy and it's had so many bumps in the road, I'm going to challenge you. I want you to find 1, 2, 3 things over the next 3 weeks. Every week, I want you to find something that's beautiful about your journey, and I want you to write it down. 3 weeks, 3 things that are beautiful about your journey. And then I want you to really think about those things. And I want you to love yourself for the journey that you have been down, because your story is enough and your story makes up your beautiful capsule. So what if your story was actually the story that somebody else needed to hear to push them to do something else, right? Just like my story of the near miss is what I call it, with the C word, right? I had near miss with cancer, and what if I wouldn't have shared my story? What if I would have just went about my business, and what if I wouldn't have said anything to my mom? And what if my mom wouldn't have said anything to her friend? Then what? That story could have turned out very differently. And so you never know how your story is going to help somebody else. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. I love this quote. Oh my gosh. And if the student is not ready, and we have all been there, and you might be there right now, you may be thinking, yeah, I'm the student, but I do not want any part of this. When the student is not ready, the lessons just keep knocking at the door. When the student is not ready, the lesson keeps knocking at the door. Please be open to learning, right? When you're aware, when you give yourself the okay to be vulnerable, there's that vulnerable word again, and when you have the courage to be the student and to be the learner in life and to embrace the things that are coming at you, even if you don't like them. I didn't say you had to like them, I just said you had to embrace them. Then you learn that lesson, and then you can move on to the next venture. I'm a huge fan of vision boards, and this is my little tiny vision board. This is actually my vision board for my Embrace Your Brave project that I'm working on. And it's so exciting and it's so invigorating to actually go, okay, I'm the student and I don't have all the answers and I'm gonna learn, and I have to learn because those little lessons just keep knocking on the door, and so I better just learn and learn, and so I can move on. Go ahead and click through. So knowledge is power, but sometimes the knowledge and the power are just too scary. And I get that. I know life is not peaches and cream every day. And sometimes you're like, no, I know that's a message that I need to hear, but I don't want to. I don't want to because I don't want to, because I'm not ready. But just be open. Be courageous enough to be open to the knowledge around you. Be open enough to understand what your superpowers are: courage, strength, wisdom. I needed to see those things every day, so I put them in a spot that I could see them every day. They're right on my body. I gotta look at myself every single day. So you better believe that I see the words courage, strength, and wisdom on my body every single day. Can't come off, they don't wash off. But they're there. And they remind me that my dance is worth it. That every step forward and the 2 steps back and the 5 steps forward again are worth it. And as my friend, Dr. Rigsby would say, you keep standing. No matter what happens to you in life, you keep standing. Dr. Rigsby is the author of an amazing book, and you may or may not have heard of Dr. Rigsby before. And if you follow me on Facebook, I have posted about Dr. Rigsby. He was on my list of humans that I needed to meet. And I wasn't gonna miss the opportunity, because I missed the opportunity to meet Maya Angelou. Dr. Rigsby, I wasn't gonna miss that opportunity. I put it out into the universe so hard, and I thought, I have to meet him. In fact, lying in bed about 3 years ago, 2 years ago, maybe now, I was lying in bed and I actually watched a Goalcast video. You've seen Goalcast videos on Facebook. I clicked on the video and I was having a rough moment because I had to go back and have my spot checked, my C word checked. And I was really scared because I thought, oh my gosh, what happens if this is, here we go, here's another check, and you're always fearful of the what if. And Dr. Rigsby's video came across my screen and I clicked on it, and I needed exactly what his message was at that time. And that's what I mean, is that sometimes things come across your path and you're like, hey, man, I don't want, not gonna listen. Okay, fine, I'll listen. But I don't really want to embrace what I'm hearing right now. You embrace it. Knowledge is power. I know we don't want to listen sometimes. I get it. And the stuff that's coming down the pipeline is just too much sometimes. Just listen. Dr. Rigsby says, you keep standing. And in his video on Goalcast, and I would encourage everybody to listen to his video, he talks about lessons from a 3rd grade dropout. And this is his book right here, if you can see it, Dr. Rigsby. It's called Lessons from a 3rd Grade Dropout: How the Timeless Wisdom of One Man Can Impact an Entire Generation. I knew on that day I needed to meet Dr. Rigsby. And somehow, by the grace of the powers that be, I happened to be at a conference in October, and then one of the keynote speakers was Dr. Rigsby. And I thought, Meagan, this is your opportunity. You do not let it pass by. So I go to the meeting coordinator and I said, is Dr. Rigsby here? And the lady looked at me like I had 5 eyes and said, well, yeah, he's the keynote speaker. He goes on in 10 minutes. And I was like, okay, well, do you happen to know where he is right now? And she's like, I think he's in the speaker's lounge. And where is that? And she said that way. And so I went that way and I said, excuse me, do you know where Dr. Rigsby is? And they're like, he's going to go on and talk in 10 minutes. Like, I don't know where he's at. He's probably at the front of the room. And I thought, okay, I have to go thank this man. I have to go find him. I have to thank him. I'm going to ask him for a hug. And I'm going to say, thank you so much for saying, keep standing. Because sometimes that's the simplest message that we need to keep going. To embrace your brave, you just have to keep standing. It's as easy as that. When you're courageous and life knocks you down and you really want to be strong, but you feel like you can't, you just have to keep standing. That's what Dr. Rigsby says. He says, just keep standing. And to me, what that means is you just keep embracing your brave. You keep embracing the fact that you are enough and that your story is enough and that you are navigating and you are recalculating and you are making the very best dance that you can for you, not for anyone else. So you've seen the picture. There I am. There's like, I don't know, 700 people in the room. And I start trying to figure out how I can find Dr. Rigsby. And I tell you what, that hug was worth every single second. In fact, that was the second hug, pre-COVID. I walk into this giant room and think, okay, where is Dr. Rigsby? And I had asked, when I had asked somebody, they said, he's really tall and he is wearing an orange tie. So there I was, 700 people, and I'm looking for a really tall human that has an orange tie. So I go to the front because he's about ready to present, I assume. So I'm looking for somebody with an orange tie in this sea of people, and I spotted him. He was in the far left-hand corner, and I ran. And I will tell you, my fellow HR professionals saw me running, and they were probably thinking, what in the world is Meagan doing? And there I was running down the middle of the aisle of this room full of people getting ready to see Dr. Rigsby speak. And I found him and he was sitting at a table and I was so happy and excited. And I went up to him and I said, Dr. Rigsby, I really wanted to meet you. And can I have a hug? I kid you not. And I had watery eyes and he looked at me and he said, of course you can have a hug. I said, you have added to my life and thank you. He said, what do you mean? I said, I saw your Goalcast video. You're an amazing human. And I love the message that you have said. And now I really have watery eyes. And you'll know why I have watery eyes when you watch his video because of things that I shared in this story with you today, this presentation today. So after he gives me this giant hug, and he's super tall. He's like 6'4". I'm 4'11". So he gives me this giant hug and he said, who are you? And I said, I'm Meagan. And he said, no, I mean, like, who are you? I said, I'm Meagan and you're Dr. Rigsby and you're an amazing human. And thank you for your knowledge. And thank you for empowering me to love my story and reminding me that I can love my story and that I can share my story with other people. And he said, you know what? You just keep standing. And I said, okay. So now it's like 2 minutes before he's supposed to go on stage and speak to like the 700 of us. And he gave the most powerful presentation. He was everything that I thought he was going to be, plus some. And I listened to his presentation. And after I said, you know, you're just as amazing as I thought you were. And you know what he said to me? He said, you just keep standing. I said, can I have another hug? Can I take a picture and can I share this with everybody? And he said, you bet. And so this was after the presentation. My watery eyes had cleared up, but take a moment to listen to Dr. Riceby and embrace what he has to say. His story is lessons from a third grade dropout, and he is such a wonderful human. And when you have the opportunity to meet other wonderful humans in your life and to embrace what they have to share, just know that it's wisdom, and they are sharing their story to not only inspire you, but to inspire them to continue growing. So embrace your
Meagan?
Yes.
Hey, Megan, it's Lisa. Look, I hate to jump in, but we're at 12:45, and this was supposed to wrap up before 12:30. So
I'm sorry. Okay, click to the next one and it's all done. So these are the questions to think about. Who are you at the core? What drives your why? And do you love your legacy? So take time to think about those 3 questions and embrace your brave. Start living your very best life. Look, Maya Angelou again, she said success is liking yourself, liking what you're doing, and liking how you are doing it. So embrace your brave and keep going forward.
awesome. Sorry to jump in on you. Time kind of got away, and I just was looking at it like, oh my gosh, we got to keep going.
No, thank you so much for saying that.
I'm going to go ahead and stop my share. I'm going to unmute Kathy Bardens here. We're going to jump over to our couple sponsors. Meagan, thank you so much for, I mean, oh my gosh, the amount of work that you put into this and the prep time. Everybody, yeah, let's give her a big round of applause. All the incredible sharing. Lots of comments in here, Meagan. You know, thank you for your insight. Thank you for sharing your vulnerability. If anyone has any questions, you can please feel free to type your question in there. I will read it off to her. I am going to unmute Sue Liesma from PNC Bank, and I'm going to unmute Diane from Light 96. And Kathy, feel free to jump in.
Okay, well, I want to thank Meagan as well. That was a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much for kicking off our first virtual Zoom meeting, and I hope everybody enjoyed it well. Again, thanks to our sponsors, to Mitchell Graphics and to PNC, to Grand Traverse Ophthalmology Clinic, and to Light 96.3. And then I'll turn it back over to Lisa for our sponsors to wrap us up.
Great. Diane from Light 96, why don't you jump in and just say a quick word?
Hi, everybody. I've missed you all. I guess I have to talk because Heather has taken 2 weeks off. She has the same issue that a lot of people have, which is child out of school. What do you do till camp starts? So she's got 2 weeks off. So I just wanted to jump in, say hi to everybody. This week on Facebook Friday, we've got a $150 gift certificate to the Sunglass Shop to give away. So you might want to pay attention to our Facebook page for that. And we're also giving away Sturgeon River Pottery gift certificates on the air this week. So lots of good stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, Diane. Suzanne Liesma from PNC, you want to say a quick hi?
Hi, miss everyone. Great presentation, Meagan. I really loved it. Obviously, with the changes and stuff, banking has really changed. So embrace that technology. If you're a little unsure of any of the ways to do banking, give us a call. If you have questions about the ATM or mobile banking, online banking, scanners, electronic items, Zelle, all that fun stuff, just give us a call. Keep tabs on our website. The Petoskey branch will be reopening soon. I'm still waiting for some details, but I'm looking forward to that day when we reopen and kind of get back to the new norm, whatever that might be.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for your sponsorship throughout the year. We really appreciate it. Grand Traverse Ophthalmology Clinic is also a marquee sponsor for the year, and they are just so busy with customers right now that they weren't able to break free, but they want you to know that they are open to help you with your eye and optical needs and a great, safe environment. So thank you everyone for joining us. Meagan, thank you again for sharing all your information and your inspiration, your story. Our next one will be July 28th. So look at information for that, and have a great week, everyone. Thank you.